Hello friends, welcome to my channel. We'll continue with the chapter number 4, Exogenetic Processes Part 2. In the previous videos, we have talked about some agents bringing about change on the surface of the earth. Today we'll talk about the agents, sea waves and groundwater. Now waves. What does waves means? Waves are the disturbances on the surface of the sea or ocean. These waves are in the form of moving swells. Now waves are caused because of winds or tides. As the winds blow across the surface of the water, initially these blowing winds will create ripples. Then these ripples, as it comes towards the coast, it will turn into waves. As the waves reaches the coast, the lower part of the waves will slow down due to friction, but the upper part will fall forward and break into the ocean. So now you know what are waves. Let us understand what work does this sea waves does on the coastline. How does it bring about the different landforms on the coastline? Now the sea waves carry out the erosion, transportation and the deposition work on the sea coast. All the works that we have seen brought about by agents are also brought about by the sea waves. We have already studied that winds and tides causes the movement of the sea water. As a result, waves comes to the coast. Now because of hitting of the waves on the rocks of the ocean coast, there is erosion of the rock taking place, and if the coastline has wide beaches, this eroded material is deposited on the coastline. Now the erosional work that the sea waves brings about. Sea waves brings with them stones, pebbles, rocks, fine sand particles, etc. This leads to the erosion of the coast, as these waves come along with this material, it erodes the coast. This leads to the erosion of the coast. We have also studied about the chemical and the hydraulic action of the sea waves. In the previous chapter, chapter number 3, we have studied about the chemical action of the sea waves. Sea waves are salty, that is they are alkaline. So some of the minerals in the rocks dissolve in the sea waves and different landforms are formed. Let us understand what is hydraulic. Now hydraulic means related to liquid. It is the pressure erosion that is caused due to the pressure of liquid. Here the liquid means the sea waves. When the waves rises up at the rocky coastline, air gets trapped into the deeper parts of the rock. Okay, there is no way for this air to come out because of the rising waves. And we know that waves bring about erosion of the rock. When the waves breaks this rock, eventually the trapped air is freed in an explosive manner, wearing away the rock at the base. This is known as the hydraulic action of the sea waves. Now the different landforms that are caused because of the erosional work of the waves. They are wave cut platform, sea caves, sea arches, sea cliffs, etc. Here is the picture of a wave cut platform. Landforms which are formed due to hitting of sea waves at the base of the cliff. Initially the land was right up to the sea coast, but because of the breaking, because of the erosion of the lower part of this cliff, the lower part got eroded and the upper part consequently it falls down, and this wave cut platform is formed. We come to sea caves now. Sea caves are formed when the sea waves hit the foot of the sea cliff. Sea caves are generally not very deep. Here is one more picture of sea cave. Now sea arches. Headland extends right up the sea, and if it gets eroded from both the sides, it leads to this particular formation which is called as sea arches. So one more picture of sea cliff and the wave cut platform. So what are sea cliffs? Hills that extend right. There are certain hills that extend right up to the sea coast. When the sea waves hit its base continuously, the rock at the foot of the cliff starts eroding. Consequently, the upper portion will fall down and sea cliffs is formed. Wave cut platforms are generally formed at the base of the cliff. Now the depositional work of sea waves. Eroded material which has accumulated at the seabed are brought towards and taken away from the sea coast by the waves and during the tides. This eroded material, this material which the sea waves has eroded, it is taken away by the sea waves and it is brought towards the coast by the sea waves. Due to this continuous hitting, due to this continuous friction, these particles, this eroded material becomes finer. They become very small in size. Now when the effect of the sea waves becomes less, when the sea waves are not that stronger, these materials, these fine materials will be deposited and different landforms will be formed. Some of the landforms formed due to the depositional work of sea waves are beaches, sandbars and lagoons. Beaches. These beaches are formed because of the depositional work of the sand. Generally, these beaches are concave in shape. Here you can see a concave beach. Now what are sandbars? Waves deposit sand and transport the sand from the sea coast. Waves bring the sand and waves take away the sand from the sea coast. This transported sand, when the waves are taking this sand away, it will not be able to carry it very far. It will be deposited somewhere inside in the sea, and a land will be formed parallel to the beach. This land will be visible during the time of low tide. Now, land parallel to the beach is formed at a distance from the lowest level of the low tide. So you can see a sandbar between two water bodies. Lagoons. Lagoons are the shallow lake. Of course, these lakes are having brackish water because this is nothing but the water of the sea. So the lakes which are formed, which are separated from the sea, are known as lagoons. You can see there is a sandbar between and two water bodies are formed. In these lagoons, there is no influence of tides. No high waves are formed here. Now lagoons are also of two types, coastal lagoon and atoll lagoon. Coastal lagoons are formed due to deposition of sand. They are very close to the beaches, and atoll lagoons are formed somewhere inside the sea, and they are formed due to coral reef. Now the final agent, and that is the groundwater. We know that rainwater, either it evaporates, it flows away, but most of the rainwater seeps into the ground. Most of the rainwater seeps below the earth's surface, and it will keep on moving downwards through the porous rocks or through the cracks in these rocks. This downward movements of the rainwater continues till it encounters a non-porous rock. When this water which is seeping down, it comes across a non-porous rock, it will accumulate there, and then the horizontal movement of the groundwater begins. Now let us see the erosional work of the groundwater. Now we know that water is a universal solvent. Many things dissolve in water. So as this water is seeping inside the ground, some of the minerals get dissolved in it. This mineral along with this water, this dissolved mineral along with this water flows with the groundwater. living holes there, living gaps in the rocks and the soil there. This is the erosional work of the groundwater. The depositional work of the groundwater. When the groundwater evaporates, maybe due to the heat of the sun or maybe because of the heat from inside the earth, or when it becomes saturated, when the groundwater evaporates or when it becomes saturated. Now saturated means when the volume of the soluble minerals in this groundwater becomes more than the solubility capacity of the groundwater, such a state is called as saturation state. Deposition of the dissolved material now begins. I repeat, what is saturation? Suppose the groundwater has some minerals dissolved in it, more minerals dissolve in it, still more minerals dissolve in it. A stage will come when no more minerals will be able to dissolve in the groundwater. Such a state is called a saturation state. Now when the water gets saturated, it will start depositing those materials, those minerals. And groundwater, as we have seen, does the work of erosion, transportation and deposition. Different landforms which are formed because of the depositional work of groundwater are sinkholes, limestone caves, stalactites and stalagmites. This is a picture of a sinkhole. Now the sinkholes are formed in the limestone regions due to erosion. Limestone contains many soluble material. So this soluble material gets dissolved in the groundwater and it is carried away by the groundwater. This leads to formation of caves. Eventually, the roof of the caves collapse and only the visible hole is left behind. Sometimes the water which is flowing on the land may disappear or get lost in these holes. These are the underground caves formed because of the groundwater. So initially you have the the ground caves, and then this caves becomes sinkholes. Stalactites and stalagmites, pillars which are formed from alkaline deposition in the limestone, are called as stalactites and stalagmites. Now the salt which is brought about by this flowing groundwater get deposited in these caves. We know that this deposition takes place either because of evaporation or because of saturation. The water part has evaporated and only that salt part, that alkaline deposits, are left. They are left on the ceiling and on the floor of the caves. Now this deposition starts collecting over the period of time. They become bigger, and if the formation is formed from roof to floor, if this extension is formed from roof to floor, it is called as stalactites. And sometimes you will see the extension, this alkaline deposits rising from floor to the roof. They are called as stalagmites. So here you can see a cave containing this beautiful pillars of stalactite and stalagmites. Sometimes the two extension, that is extension from roof and extension from bottom, meeting together and a continuous pillar being formed. There are such caves called as Bora caves in Visakhapatnam area of Andhra Pradesh. You can see this in the Visakhapatnam area of Andhra Pradesh. Now, what is groundwater? The upper surface of the water accumulated below the ground is called as the water table. Factors like season, porosity of rock, amount of rainfall, etc. affects the level of the water table. So when you want to dig a well, you have to see to it that you will dig it in the season when the water table is the lowest. So if you dig in such a season, that is in summer season in India, it will ensure that there will be water throughout the year in the well. The water table is closer to the ground during the rainy season, and in the summer season it goes deeper. Thank you, students.